going on, everybody? It's Lucky Fin Gaming here, and welcome back to Ark Survival Evolved, where today I want to talk about the 5 best animals to have if you're solo. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Guys, then starting off at number 5, we have none other than the Pylovia. This is kind of the guard dog of Ark, but it is capable of many more things. But one of the first things, it can definitely act as a hidden sentry by going in and you can hit it and you can make it bury itself. Not only that, but once it's buried, it can actually stun and launch out at opponents. It doesn't have to like do this long animated burying thing. It can just kind of launch itself out of the ground, which is just absolutely crazy. Let's go to options here. Let's unclaim this little dodo. And then if I whistle it to attack, if I can get it to, as you can see, it just absolutely launches out just like that. So a very good little animal here. Very good for guarding, and I have discovered recently also apparently very good if you cryopod it and throw it out at people. It can also make a very handy kind of take with you attack animal. I could talk for hours about how good these animals are, how woken up I've become to these animals, because I had kind of just overlooked them before, just seen them as a nuisance. But recently, I watched a video, and surprisingly, the guy actually shouted me out. So I will leave it to Mr. One Wing. I watched his video. I didn't even know. Apparently, he was in the comments shouting out my channel. So I figure it's only courtesy for me to shout him out back. If you guys are here from his channel, hi, welcome. If you are not here from his channel and you've never even heard of him before, I definitely recommend him. I've watched him for years. I didn't even know that he had shouted me out. So really fantastic Ark YouTuber. I definitely recommend his content. So as far as how good these guys are, I'll leave the rest up to him. Again, thank you, One Wing. We have none other than the Crystal Wyvern. Of course, this is a staple in really any tribe in Ark, whether you're whether you're in a big tribe or a small tribe. These guys are an absolute staple in the game. Ever since Crystal Isles came out, these guys have been just absolutely fantastic. As we've discussed in previous videos, they are definitely top tier starting tames. You definitely always want to have one of these guys, especially if you're a solo. One of the things about being a solo is you want to kind of try to avoid combat. You don't want to be making any other larger tribes mad. So you want to avoid combat, and this being one of the fastest flyers in the game definitely has that capability. Not only that, but it's definitely able to be a jack of all trades kind of animal. With a recent update giving them the ability to pick up ankylosaurs, which I wish I kind of had one out, but it can now pick up ankylosaurs, and my testing has led me to conclude that it can pick up basically anything that an Argentavis can. Add on the fact that it does have a special ability. Of course, I'm using the tropical Crystal Wyvern as a example, but any Crystal Wyvern really is a complete staple. You should definitely have one if you're a solo. Especially if it's a blood Crystal Wyvern. They're also fantastic. They've got really long range, and they're just as fast as the Crystal Wyverns. The only reason I'm using this one here specifically is because when you're starting out, especially when you're getting that starter Wyvern, this is definitely going to be the one you're going to want to get. You don't really want to go out and try to find a blood or Ember. Embers are just really hard to find to begin with, and then of course the blood ones. Everybody wants a blood Crystal Wyvern. They're really that good. But of course these things can be tamed solo very easily because all they require is crystal. You don't even need to get the primal crystal for them. So absolutely fantastic animals. Whenever I play solo, I always try to make sure I have one of these. So yeah, definitely the tropical crystal wyvern at number 4. Guys, and then at number 3 we have the Equis, a fantastic solo animal and a very good starting animal. This is definitely one of the ones you should definitely start off with when you're getting going as a solo, or really it also works for any size tribe, but especially as a solo. These guys are fantastic for helping knock out some other early tames. They're also with a saddle on them, which you kind of have to be a decent level for them to have a saddle. But as you can see, they can make anything that you can make in a mortar and pestle, including narcotics, which makes them fantastic for farming narcotics. As long as you've got plenty of spoiled meat, you can actually use them to kind of go around and pick up berries and things, and if grab the narco berries, and turn them into narcotics. Really, when you have berry farming, you really don't need much else than this. You know, when you're a solo, you definitely want to like focus up on your tames, not try to have like too many spare extra tames if you're in PvP. So this guy definitely adds to that capability with the ability to just kind of use this one as a kind of a jack of all trades kind of farming animal. When it comes to actually using them for chemistry necessities, I'll actually use these guys. I've done it before, even when I was in a larger tribe. I would have an area just set up with equises with saddles because they can store so much more than a mortar and pestle. You just put as much as you can, as much as their weight will allow. And which also brings us to another fantastic thing about these guys. They are one of the first pioneers, actually, when they were making this one. It was one of the first ones to be able to actually reduce the weight of certain resources. It reduces the weight of almost anything that would go into a mortar and pestle to make any kind of chemistry. I think the only one that it doesn't actually reduce the weight of is charcoal for gunpowder, but it does reduce the weight of spark powder, which spark powder isn't really that heavy to begin with, but still it does do that. Then of course halves the weight of stone and other things, so it makes it a very good early jack of all trades animal. Definitely, like I said, a staple, one that I definitely try to keep around when I'm doing a solo playthrough. So the Equus at number 3. Alright guys, and then at number 2 we have a blood stalker, or the bog spider as I've heard it called before. These guys are also pretty fantastic for solos. Of course, again, we have another situation of an animal that is fantastic for any size tribe, but I also find them to be especially useful at soloing. Well, I would if I actually use them that often. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't really use them that often, but I do know that as a solo, they are very good if you're out alone, even if you're in a larger tribe. But when you're generally out alone, they do have a wide array of uses. The ability to climb on walls, among other things. They have a fairly thin profile actually. If we get above it here. And as you can see, we have a fairly thin profile on this thing here. So in a pinch, it makes it very useful for dodging and hiding. Like I said, you kind of, when you're solo, you definitely want to avoid large scale combat. You don't want to take anything major from anybody larger than you, because you don't want those repercussions. There's no way as a solo you're ever going to be able to fend off a large tribe. So the Bloodstalker makes very good work for that. Um, but if you're ever in any situation where you are needing to defend yourself, a Bloodstalker will be absolutely fantastic for that. They are also very good traveling companions, very good traveling animals all around, and like I said, very good for just ducking away and getting away from things. So yeah, definitely a Bloodstalker would definitely help you out as a solo. Guys, and then for a quick honorable mention before we get to our number 1 slot, I did want to include a Rock Drake. I know that there are a lot of people that when I was discussing this list, a lot of people said Rock Drake, Rock Drake, Rock Drake. The Rock Drake is absolutely fantastic. I will not deny these facts. A Rock Drake is very good for soloing, but the reason I have actually excluded it from being in the top 5 of this list, in fact, I don't even think I would put it in a top 10, is honestly because it is, as we've discussed previously, is just completely outdone by the Mana Garmer, but moreover, it's complicated in order to have one, it's a very complicated process, though it does synergize extremely well with a solo playstyle. The ability to go invisible is just absolutely fantastic. It makes it to where when you're running away from somebody, as I've discussed, trying to avoid that combat, ducking in here, invisible can make you relatively hard to see for anybody. I have gotten away multiple times when I was on a rock drake, just kind of ducking into forests just like these and then hiding out. Also, fantastic swimmers, becoming almost invisible in the water. So absolutely fantastic on every level when it comes to that. But again, if they were just easier to get, and if they just weren't completely outdone in combat, these things would be so much better. But unfortunately, they just aren't, and they are fairly deficient in almost every way, which is why I have excluded them from the top anything list. But just for those people who would suggest that a rock drake is fantastic as a solo, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be good for as a solo, but it's just deficient in certain ways. And then of course it's just how complicated it is to get. You need to spend significant time on aberration just to get one. So unfortunately, as much as I love a rock drake, the rock drakes for a long time were one of my favorite animals. They're just not number one or anything in this top 5 list, but definitely an honorable mention. I'm sure anybody who knows Ark knows that this was coming. It's this Shadow Mane, added in Genesis Part 2. Absolutely fantastic for solo players. It has a great many things that the Rock Drake has, but with a much greater ease of taming, the ability to go invisible, though it is not nearly as fast as a rock drake in invisibility mode. It would definitely offer the same thing that a rock drake has if you were to be running away from somebody who's on something that's more powerful than you, or just like more mutated than yours. You could definitely duck into even something like this and then just go invisible as long as they were out of your sight. And then they may just be, they might just actually overlook you. As long as you don't move and don't have your little paw prints here, it would definitely work out for you. Just ducking into some thick forest would definitely be good. They're also fairly decent travel companions. Definitely a jack of all trades when it comes to movement. As you can see, we're about to get in the water here, and it swims faster, honestly, than it runs on land. So making it very fantastic for moving through biomes. Another thing it has is a very large jump, as you can see here. We have this, which allows you to go way higher than I intended to go. Holy cow, I did not even expect to go that high. My goodness. I didn't know it could go that high. Dear Lord. You guys get the point, though. You get the point of what I'm trying to say. The ability to do that is just absolutely fantastic. Let's see if we can get back to our stage area over here in Viking Bay. So y'all definitely saw that. I am completely shocked, you guys. I cannot believe that I just went that high. That's insanity. Never mind those dead animals. So the rock drake, definitely good for that. Like I said, going invisible, and it has a couple of other tricks up its sleeve. This thing is just absolutely so fantastic for solos. Trying to pave their way throughout the worlds, throughout the arc here. So another thing it has is, as you guys can see, this one only has a 9.9 because I spawned it at level 1, but it can get all the way up to, I think, 270 armor through called natural armor. This thing does not take a saddle of any kind, but it does have natural armor. So the higher the level you get, the better the saddle, the quote-unquote saddle, or I guess I should just call it what it is, the natural armor it has, which works out very well for the Shadow Mane. And then, of course, anybody who's used one knows that when you're getting attacked, you actually, for every attack that they do to you, they're actually getting poisoned, and that can stack up to, like, I think it's 4. And then you are also, whenever you bite them, you're also inflicting even more poison, stacking on even more poison. So it's very detrimental to attack a Shadow Mane, and really anything other than a Giga or I mean, even a Rex would probably lose to this. I don't think it would be able to beat a good Spino, but and as you guys know, I have discussed in the past, so I don't think this thing is changing the meta in any particular way. Most of the time when I see them out, I've only seen like one or two people out on Shadow Mains. Most of the time they're out on Crystal Wyverns, or um, of course, if they're getting into fights, they're getting into it with Gigas or Spinos or other things like that. However, they are still absolutely fantastic, and if you're a solo player, it would definitely give you the ability to run away. And they're also fairly easy to tame. That's one of my big things, is if you're a solo, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time taming something. You don't want to be out in the open that long. You don't want anybody to catch you. Um, because of course when you're a solo, one of the big things is you want to stay hidden. These guys make it definitely easy for that. All they require is a few fish and fish baskets, which I will admit, is a little bit more complicated than it sounds, but still fairly easy in comparison, especially with the rock drake up there. So yeah, the Shadow Main definitely deserves its spot at number one. Good for larger tribes, but fantastic for solos. The ability to, it's got one other ability where if you do this, you can target multiple other targets, and you can even knock people off their animals, off of anything smaller. I don't think you can knock it off of Gigas. In fact, I know you can't, because I tried that the other day, and then I got my shit ran. So you're not going to be able to knock anybody off of anything large, but off of smaller animals, it definitely will help. So the Shadow Main definitely, like I said, definitely deserves its slot at number one. Guys, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed this list of my top 5 solo animals that I think, if you're a solo, you should definitely have, including the honorable mention. So if you did, think about sticking around and hit that subscribe button, and definitely do me a favor and hit that like button. And I did want to say again, thank you to One Wing, who apparently was shouting me out in the comment sections of his latest video. Link to his video there in the description below, so you can check out why the Pylovia is such a fantastic animal for solos, and even larger tribes abroad. But with that, guys, that's all I have for you today, so I will see you all in another time and dimension, whenever or wherever that may be. Till then, peace out.